everyone. So, right now we're going to discuss the last perspective, the psychological perspective. Okay, so first we must define psychology. So, what is psychology? Psychology is a field of social sciences that deals with description, explanation, prediction, and control of behavior. It believes that the world of material things, including people, exists independently of the perceiving human mind. So, they say that psychology as a discipline started in the 1800s, but actually, it has been discovered that there was already psychology way back during the time of Socrates and Plato in Greece. Okay. Now, okay, so here I'm going to show you a table to to illustrate the view of self throughout history. Okay. So first, during the late medieval period, okay, so knowledge of the self was not considered very important. There was little concern for introspection and self reflection about personal behavior, and more emphasis was placed on the spiritual soul, to what happens after death, and to the population's collective salvation than on people's self knowledge and understanding. Okay, the sense of self was actually linked to a person's place in the social hierarchy based on the services that person provided or the details of his or her background. So, for example, Hans the blacksmith or Countess Maria of York. During the early modern period, okay, social mobility increased, like, commoners gained access on the aristocracy through marriage, and the social hierarchy began to weaken. As a result, emphasis on the sense of self as reflected by birth status or occupation began to decrease. Okay. Also, during this time, there was an emphasis on the private self began to also increase. Okay, so people believed that the hidden aspect of the self resided inside each person that was quite different from the individual's public image. And also, this time, people were concerned with the notion that people's behavior did not necessarily reflect their private beliefs and values. So, for example, Sarah is interested in the scandalous behavior of the royal family. Okay, so it means that the people during this time that um, they are they know the inner self of others than their own private self. So it's more of the chismis. Okay. Now, during the Puritan era, okay, the focus shifted from trying to know others to trying to know oneself. Okay. So this shift in emphasis can be explained within the context of the Puritan doctrine of predestination, which proposed that people were destined to either heaven or to hell. So in this time, they are really more on living a good life because they they are scared of what's going to happen to them after life. Okay. During the romantic era, okay, this era is just actually characterized by a sense of conflict between the individual and the society. Okay, so the source of conflict was a shift in the prevailing view of the Puritan era society, okay, that an individual's fate was predetermined, to the emerging view of the romantic era. Okay. And also during this era, the unique destiny of each person was emphasized. So his or her task was to discover what that predetermined destiny was and to fulfill it. So here at the Romantic era, an example is like Raoul's passion for painting influenced his decision to be an artist instead of baker, like his father and brother. Okay, so somehow there was already a sense of alienation. Okay, because they wanted to pursue more what they really wanted, not because what others like them to be. Okay. Now, during the early 20th century, okay, um, here people are more and more becoming um, independent. Okay, because uh, the people are, oh, sorry. So let's have the Victorian era first, okay? So in the Victorian era, sorry, the emphasis on individuality continued to grow, okay? But the excessively high moral standards brought by the influence of the conservative reign of Queen Victoria that were so prevalent at that time made such examination by Victorians difficult, and as a result, a tendency developed for the Victorians to become self deceptive and deny certain aspects of their personality. Okay, so here, for example, so Frances channeled her sexual desires into her charitable activities at the mission. So here, because especially royalties, they are scared of the scandals. Okay, so to cover up their, their somehow immoral ways, okay, they try to channel it into something else. Okay, so to cover it up. Mm-hmm. Okay, so somehow Bec- also during this time, like the Victorian women do not want to be seen during daylight because they might be looked at by others. Okay, so somehow they really are, they are scared of what others will say against them. Okay, now, okay, so going back, sorry, to the early 20th century. Okay, um so there was a tremendous influence on how people began to perceive themselves. Okay, so it's more on the this is the time that psychology is becoming a discipline, and it's becoming people are really more and more become self-aware of themselves. Okay, so here Freud was already alive. Okay, so Freud emphasized the significance of the hidden unconscious aspects of the self, which we already discussed during the philosophical perspectives. Okay, and here, um, people are now becoming more and more um, independent. So they wanted to, um, not really like a rebel, but they wanted to show more of their individuality, not and then and do not conform with the society. Okay, so here an example is the sense of pride Alice once received from her handcrafted vases was lost when she went to work on an assembly line. Okay, so somehow um, during the 20th century, uh, people still are a bit confused on what and who they are. Okay, and uh, there's and there's still a strong urge to search more of themselves. And now, on the late 20th century through early 21st century, okay, so uh, the era that we are living right now, okay, um, we are now becoming more and more um, uh, independent, but at the same time, we are also looking for some a group that would accept us. Okay, so it's more of you you wanted to belong to a group because of this. Okay, so it's more of the sense of collectivism. Okay, so here an example is M- Frank wears a nose ring and 5-inch blue mohawk to express his individuality at work as a data processor. Okay, so somehow, um, even if the individual is unique, okay, they still try to blend with the group. Okay, so that's how we view self throughout history. Okay, so somehow there's already a desire to be special. Okay, to rise up. Okay, so even if you look weird, you still want to belong. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so here are some issues in psychology. So a lot of psychologists also debate on this, especially when we talk about how a person develops himself or herself. So first, okay, is the mind-body problem. So we already talked about this during the philosophical perspectives. Okay, here are some of the questions that they ask. Okay, is the mind part of the body or the body part of the mind, or if they are distinct? Then how do they interact? And which of the two is in charge? Okay, so you already saw this illustration during the philosophical perspectives. And the second one is the nature and nurture controversy. Okay, so it's like, is it part, is it innate, a priori or posteriori, like that? Okay, so which particular aspects of behavior are a product of either inherited or acquired? Okay, so nature is that which is inherited or genetic. Okay, and nurture refers to all environmental influences after conception, so experience. Okay, so again, a priori, posteriori. Okay, so I'm going to show you a short clip. Okay, actually, this is a documentary. Okay, to illustrate the nature nurture controversy. Please watch.
I wouldn't believe the story if someone else were telling it, but it's true, every word of it. It started when I went to college. It was the first day of school. All these people are coming up to me saying, Eddie, how are you? Eddie, hi. I'm like, my name's not Eddie. I don't know what you're talking about. As soon as this guy turned around, I knew it was Eddie's double. I said, you're not going to believe this. You have a twin brother. Oh my God. As I reach out to knock on the door, it opens. And there I am. His eyes are my eyes, my eyes are his eyes, and it's true.
And then the story went from being amazing to incredible.
There was an article to Twins Reunited. I think I might be the third.
When people ask me what is the most remarkable story you ever encountered, I tell them it's the story of the triplets.
You guys have been on the front page of every newspaper in the world.
True. They were more like clones than they were like brothers.
It was a miracle.
There was nothing that can keep us apart.
That's when things kind of got funky.
Something was just not right.
They separated these boys at birth.
The parents had never been told that there were two other children.
What was the purpose?
Why? How could you not tell us?
They're trying to conceal what they did from the people they did it to.
When you play with humans, you do something very wrong.
It would be evil enough to come up with something like this.
There's a lot of powerful people who would like to have this story silenced.
There's still so much that we don't know. It boggles the mind. It's a mystery. I'd like to know the truth.
Okay, So that's a documentary film entitled Three Identical Strangers. So actually, these triplets, okay, they were separated at birth. Actually, they were all in a an orphanage, and then the people in the orphanage separated them without telling their adopters that they are triplets. Okay. And then later on, they all discovered, when they're already an adults, um, they discovered that they were lab rats. Okay. It's part of the twin studies that yun nga, and they wanted to discover the nature and nurture. Okay. So yeah, if you have time, you can watch it on your favorite movie streaming website. Okay, Three Identical Strangers. Okay. So there. Okay, so let's move on. Okay. Um, we will only have one. Sorry. We will only have one psychologist. Okay, here. So we're going to talk. Okay, we will have William James. Okay. So William James is known for his theory of the self. Okay, so he is a an American psychologist. Okay. So yon. So only one psychologist. Okay. So let's learn more about his theory of the self. Okay. So for him, there are five characteristics of human thought. Okay. So here are the five. So let me read it. Okay. So all human thoughts are owned by some personal self. All thoughts are constantly changing or never static. There is a continuity of thoughts as it focus shifts from one object to another. Thoughts deal with objects that are different from and independent of consciousness self, and consciousness can focus on one particular objects and not others. Okay, so these are the characteristics again of human thought according to William James. Okay. So let's move on. Okay. For William James, there are two parts of the self. Okay. You already got a glimpse of it on our introductory slide about William James. So the me self and the I self. Okay. So me self can be considered as a separate object or individual that the person refers to when discussing or describing their personal experience, or actually you can also call the me self as empirical me. Okay, and the I self is the self that knows and recognizes who they are and what they have done. Okay, or actually you can also consider I self as pure ego or thinking self. Okay, and if we're going to go back to the philosophical perspectives, I self is the person's soul or mind. Okay. So again, to explain this further, so it me self is you become separate, okay, from the object. Okay, you're a separate object, so it means that it's more of your role. Okay, and your I self is more of your inner self. Okay, so okay, so now what are the components of me self? Okay, so here, okay, we have the material self. Okay, so material self consists of the things or objects that belong to the person or entities that the person belongs to. So everything that you possess. So like your body, your family, clothes, money, etc., etc. Okay. So for the material self, actually, the body is the core because everything that is attached or associated, okay, to the person is your material self. Okay, we will talk about more about material self later on. Okay, and we're going to discuss the different selves already. Okay, so they say that the more attached and identify the person to his material things, the more he will be affected if any of them changes. Okay, so somehow, our material self, okay, or our attachment to the material things, okay, is strong. Like, for example, um, pag naiwan mo yung cellphone mo sa bahay mo, 'di ba? Parang hindi ka mapakali, parang hindi kumpleto yung araw mo, yung buhay mo. 'Yon. Okay. So next, we will have the social self. So social self is the first is or refers to who the person is in particular social situation. So what kind of self do you portray when you are with a group? Okay? And then, next is the spiritual self. So, it refers to the self that is more concrete or permanent. Okay, so it also includes aspects like the individual's personality, values, and morals. Okay, the social self is always engaging in the process of introspection. Okay, so you do some self observation. Okay, you look into yourself. Okay, you study yourself. Okay, that's introspection. Okay, reflection. So they say that if there's a conflict in the spiritual self, okay, it says that it will be very difficult for a person to have a peace of mind. So it's very important that you are aligned with your spiritual self, or else, you won't feel happiness, you won't feel content, or generally speaking, again, you don't have peace of mind. Okay, now here are the characteristics of I self. Okay, so the I self cannot be studied objectively, so it is a non-substance. Okay, not unlike me self. Somehow you have different roles. For the I self, no. Okay, because again, it is your thinking self. Okay, so I self also comprises the totality of the person's identity, and it arises from a continuous stream of human consciousness. Okay, so it's a non-substance, okay, compared to me self. Okay, so okay, so actually in psychology, okay, we have other selves pa. Okay, so we will tackle it on the next slides. Okay, so first we will have the global indifferentiated self models. So what's the difference between the two? Okay, I'll flash it now. So again, global self represents the overall value that a person places upon himself. Okay, so it affects how he views and feels about himself, and the people that he interacts every day greatly influences the person. So again, global self is, being global. Okay, somehow you're the overall person you have. Okay, differentiated self actually is a concept brought by Murray Bowen. Okay, and they say that the differentiated self is has the ability to separate thoughts and feelings. Okay, so your differentiated self, okay, it means that the person recognizes that he has his own personality and therefore endowed with unique characteristics not found in other members of the group. Okay, so somehow you are being unique um, when we are talking about your differentiated self. Okay, so however, there's a danger, okay, for being uh, too much different. Okay, so they say that uh, here it's just mentioned here that there are two components, the togetherness and individuality. So it means that if there's too much togetherness, it means that you are very close to your group. Okay, it creates friction and it prevents the development of the person's sense of self. So it means that the more close you are, it's difficult for a person to show their individuality. So for example, like in a group. Okay? So, sabihin na nating lahat kayo barako, lalaki. Pero may isa kayo palang kagrupo doon na pusong babae. So, somehow that person is having difficulty showing na babae ko, pero alam mo, may pusong babae ako, pero hindi ako hiwalay sa inyo. Parang ganon. Barkada ba rin tayo? Tropa pa rin tayo. Okay. Now, on the other hand, too much individuality results in distance and strange feelings towards family and other people. So, yung parang, ito naman yung sobrang nagpapaka-weird ka naman. Okay? Na hindi ka, mahirap kang pakisamahan. Ayun. Okay. So, differentiated self enables the person to develop and sustain his own identity, make his own choices, and accept responsibility for his behavior while maintaining to stay emotionally connected with his family and friends. So, the differentiated self should have a balance pa rin. Okay? Between togetherness and individuality. Okay, so it's okay to be unique, but there's a reminder that you still need to belong, okay, to a group. You need to conform. Okay? So, next set of selves are the real self and the ideal self concepts. Okay? This is actually developed by Carl Rogers. Okay? He also developed the self-centered theory. Okay? So, self-concept means that how a person thinks about or perceives himself. So what are these? Okay, these two. So real self refers to all information and perception the person has about himself. Okay, so actually the real self answers the question, who am I? Okay? Now, the ideal self, of course, is the model version of you. Okay, so what the person aims for himself to be. So it answers the question, who do I want to be? Okay, so you have this ideals. Okay, you have this like standard. Okay, now there's a reminder here that there should be a congruence between the real self and ideal self for a person to be happy and satisfied with his life. Okay. So it means that it's okay to still have an ideal self, but the real self should still be intact, because the ideal self should be the basis of who do you want to be really. Okay? There. Okay. So next, okay, there are another set of theories on real self and ideal self, okay, by Higgins, the self discrepancy theory. So they say that people use internalized standards to which they compare themselves. Okay, so somehow here uh, humans, they still have the tendency to compare themselves if they are better or lesser. Okay, but somehow those standards self as a self guide. Okay, so for example, you saw your friend na mayaman, so siyempre kahit gusto mo rin maging ganun ka, so somehow you are using those things as a guide for you to be mayaman din in the future, parang ganon. Okay, so what are self guides? Of course, it provides directions on how to present himself. Okay. And self discrepancy, on the other hand, is when the self is found to be deviating or diverting from self guide and may cause emotional discomfort and manifest as guilt or indifference. So, ito na yung um, when you are already like pretending. Okay? You are already pretending uh, or showing uh, an identity that is not real because you just wanted to belong. Okay? Yon. And of course, when you are pretending, of course you are not happy. There's a guilt, right? Towards the end of the day, you are not happy. Okay? Yon, those actually, this is one of the uh, big issues of teenagers. Okay, so let's move on now to the next set of selves, the multiple and unified self. Okay, so multiple self exist in the individual different aspects of the self. So we have different aspects of the self. And in multiple self, it says that we are made of parts, and these parts may manifest when situation calls for it. Okay, so again, multiple self, it means that you play different roles. Okay, and somehow you switch roles depending on the situation. Okay, and the unified self, of course, is talking about your consciousness, awareness, and agency. Okay, now, to be considered as a well-adjusted person, success and failure should be accepted and understood. Okay, that person is able to deal with and accept the complexities and the perceived unfairness that exists in life. Okay, so that person must adjust, adapt, evolve, and survive. Okay, so again, in multiple and unified self, it talks about evolution and adaptation and survival. Okay, so it depends on the situation, what how we're going to switch, okay, selves. Okay, next, okay, we have true and false selves. Okay, this is actually formulated by Winnicott. Okay, so here in the true and false selves, it he was able uh, um, to formulate this. Okay, because Winnicott looked into the significance of play in child development. So what is the role of play, okay, in our development, in human development? Okay, so true self actually is seen as creative, spontaneously experiencing each day of their lives, its lives, okay, appreciating being alive, real, integrated, and connected to the whole of existence. Okay, so it's just being real. Okay, and false self, on the other hand, is actually um, is like a defense mechanism. Okay, because it is a mask that hides the true person for the fear of pain, of rejection, and failure. Okay, actually, these two selves are present in all individuals. Okay, but okay, both should be functional for the advantage of both the person and the society. Okay. So a person who struggles to fit in but still experiences the feeling of being forced to comply rather than adapting gracefully to the situation is a person whose self is maladjusted and unhealthy. Okay. So again, these two selves are present, but there should be a balance. Okay, because of course, sometimes we can also be showing our false self. Like for example, you're applying for a job, right? You want to show your best foot forward. They say that fake it till you make it, right? That saying, okay? As long as you can handle it, okay? Kung kaya mong panindigan, go lang. Okay. Yon. But then, of course, the true self should still be intact, okay? While portraying somehow a false identity. Because again, if there's too much false self being shown, okay, um, you yourself are all becoming confused on who you really are. Okay. Now, next, we will have the proactive and agentic self. Proactive and agentic self, okay, is being coined by Albert Bandura. Okay, he is also the one who formulated the social cognitive theory. Okay, social cognitive theory is about learning through observation, and it also says that human behavior is plastic and flexible. So, to summarize, here are the main points of social cognitive theory. Okay. So, first, humans have the capacity to exercise control over his or her life. Second, human beings are proactive, self regulating, self reflective, and self organizing. Next, people have the ability to influence their own behavior, which may lead to desired outcomes. And lastly, it involves exploration and manipulation in order to influence the environment and achieve desired consequences. Okay, so we will learn more about this in the next few slides. Okay, so let's define first what is proactive and agentic self. Okay, so a proactive self is the one who actively participates in the development of self and learning process, especially in setting new and higher goals for himself. Okay, while agentic self is defined as the aspect of human personality that is determined by future assessments of one's goals, objectives, and actions. Agentic self functions are adversely affected by degenerating, planning, selecting, and implementing the capabilities of an individual. Okay. Actually, it's not proactive and agentic self are not two different selves. Okay, they are just one. Okay, kaya nga self, hindi siya selves. Okay. So, what do you mean by being agentic? Okay. So, the root word is agent. Okay. So, according to Bandura, us humans are agents because we have the ability to create and make our own experiences. So, in short, we are the originators of experiences. So, that's being agentic. Okay, so it means that we have the capability to really plan, okay, what do we want in life, okay? And of course, you do it proactively, okay? So that's it, okay? The proactive and agentic self, okay? As again, we are agents. We have the ability to create and make our own experiences. Thus, we are proactive in doing it, in developing ourselves. Okay. Now, again, just like what I mentioned a while ago, okay, we are agents. And what are the features of human agency? So, how do we plan our lives? Okay? How do we create those things that will make us a better person? So, there's like, here are the things, okay, that we are capable of doing. Okay? So, first, intentionality. Okay. So, intentionality are actions performed by the person intentionally or with full awareness of his or her behavior. Okay. So, in intentionality, it involves planning with awareness of the possible consequences of actions. Okay. So, for example, you want to travel. So, what are your intentions? Why do you want to travel? Okay. Next is forethought. So it refers to the person's anticipation of likely outcomes of his behavior. So this allows him to select from a repertoire of behaviors and determine which one will most likely lead to a positive outcome. So again, let's have an example. Okay. So you want to travel. Why do you want to travel? So that's your intentionality. Now, your forethought, it means that you are already like um, having this vision on what do you want to happen, or you're already making this, um, this mental picture that okay, I will travel to Paris. Okay, so somehow you are already making this prediction. Okay, and of course you wanted to have a positive outcome. Okay. Next, self-reactiveness. So, person is motivated and regulates his behavior as he observes his progress in achieving his goals. So, it means that in this stage, okay, in this feature, you are now doing, uh, you're making an effort, okay, on how are you going to make your plan a reality. So again, based on our example, you wanted to travel. So for thought, of course, you're already envisioning yourself that you will really travel, okay? And then in self-reactiveness, what are you going to do? Okay, what are the steps that you're going to do in order that your plans will be a reality? So you will save money, okay, or put some money in the bank, like that. Less Starbucks coffee, like that. Okay, so again, when you do this, your goal should be clear and specific. Okay, you know the SMART goal in making goals, the SMART, SMART, 'di ba? Specific, measurable, attainable, ano ba yung R? Um, Reasonable, I'm not really sure, and then T, time bound. So, somehow, you wanted to plan that na mangyayari sa ganitong period. Okay? And then, next is self-reflectiveness. So, person looking inward and evaluating his motivations, values, life goals, and other people's effect on him. Okay, so you are doing a reflection based on your motivations or intentions. So, again, why do you want to travel? Will it make me a better person? Those things. Okay? How will it affect you? Okay? As a person. Because some people, let's say, they wanted to travel so that may pagyabang. Or gusto mo travel kasi um, gusto mo iregalo sa sarili mo. So those are things, okay? That will be your key points on reflecting on your about your plans. And then last one is self-efficacy. So it's a person's belief that he is capable of behavior that will produce desired positive results. So it means that you believe in yourself that you will be able to achieve your goals. Okay? So, let's move on. Okay, so again, Bandura is saying that since we are an agentic person, okay, she also stressed the importance of self-regulation. So, what is self-regulation? It is when a person is actively attempting to minimize the discrepancies between what he has already accomplished and what he still wants to achieve. Okay, in self-regulation, you also allow the person to set goals that are better and higher than the former, challenging his capabilities and making him a wiser and self-actualized individual. Okay, so in you do balancing when you do self regulation. Okay, you are still trying to be realistic because some person, they cannot regulate themselves. They are somehow consumed with greed or maybe jealousy. So there's no self-regulation there because your intentions are not realistic anymore. Okay? So again, in self-regulation, you must learn how to minimize the discrepancies. So you still need to be in touch with reality, 'di ba? Hindi yung kunyari, wala ka naman talaga, like for example, some people would like to have a car. There's nothing wrong to have a car, right? But make sure you have money to pay for it. Okay? Or you might end up losing the car in the long run. Okay, baka yun nga wala ka ng pambaya, you just got, let's say you just got attracted with the zero down payment without really thinking that can you sustain paying the car in the next 5 years. Those things you really have to think very well. Okay, so actually that's self-regulation because you really wanted something for yourself, but you know your limitations. Okay, next is another self, the individualistic and collective selves. So individualistic self is actually more of a western thought. Okay, It's more of cultural. Okay. So remember, in the West, when a child is about to enter college, they have to move out of the house and starting to live their own lives. Okay, so that's being individualistic self. Okay. Now, here actually in Asia, we are more of a collective. Okay. So it means that somehow we still rely on the group, on the decisions that we're going to make. Okay, or yun nga, we still live together like yung mga sa compound, yung mga kamag-anak mo, okay, extended family kayo. Ayan. Okay. So somehow, especially for some very traditional families, usually the oldest or the eldest in the family is the one who's making decisions. Usually the lolo, 'di ba? Yeah. So that's we are being collective here in Asia. Okay. Even in the Philippines. Okay. Yon. So, yon. Okay. So, but in the contemporary society, okay, both the individualistic and collective selves may exist as an individual, in an individual as a result of influences of intermarriages or sharing of knowledge and influx of information from mass and social media. So, somehow there's we're already evolving, okay? We're being individualistic and collective at the same time. Okay. Yon. So, that's it, okay, for the psychological perspective. So, we're done with all the perspectives. Okay. So, again, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask me. Okay. I would still encourage you to do a lot of reading, okay, to further understand our lessons. Okay. And okay, I will make major announcements on Google Classroom. Okay? So we will have an activity. Okay, look at the stream and that's it. Okay? So after this, okay, this will be our last topic before the midterms, and after midterms we will talk about different selves. Okay, so again, study hard, stay safe, and God bless.